Imagine, if you will, walking down the street in your neighborhood and you pass by a house that looks a little different. The lawn is overgrown, the weeds so tall they sway in the wind. The flowers that used to be so bright and vibrant are all dried up now, replaced by tangled vines creeping up the front porch. A thick layer of dust has settled on the windows. Cobwebs cover the trellises. And the mailbox is stuffed with old letters, forgotten. Maybe you've noticed it before, but you brushed it aside, assuming the owner had moved away or was simply neglecting the yard. Day after day, you pass, but without giving it much thought. It's just one more thing in a busy world full of things to worry about. Life goes on. But what if that house wasn't just neglected? What if it was a silent cry for help? What if behind those dusty windows and unkept yard, someone was sitting alone, waiting for someone to notice, waiting for someone to care? Well, that's what happened to Marinella Beretta in northern Italy. Her neighbors assumed she had simply moved away. No one checked in, no one knocked on the door, no one noticed as time passed and the garden grew wild. For 2 years, she sat in that home, forgotten by those around her, until a fallen tree finally led authorities to her skeletal remains, still sitting and waiting. 2 years. It's a tragic reminder of what happens when indifference sets in, when people become so wrapped up in their own lives that they stop noticing the signs that someone might need them. We assume someone else will take care of it. We convince ourselves that it's not our problem. But in a way, it is. The overgrown weeds in the forgotten house remind us of a stark reality that when we stop noticing our neighbors, when we stop caring, we risk losing something vital, our sense of shared humanity. In every corner of the world, across centuries and cultures, one truth emerges. The true measure of our humanity lies in how we care for each other. Yet, despite this shared wisdom, we often hesitate. Something holds us back. Fear, uncertainty, discomfort, worrying about getting it wrong, being judged, or feeling vulnerable. So what do? We turn away. But in doing so, we miss the deeper connections and purpose that come from stepping into that discomfort and embracing compassion. But how many times have we sat at that red light, that corner, refusing to look at the panhandler to our left, who is silently pleading with you to notice that sign, to notice them? And thoughts start rushing through your head. You remember the stories of some panhandlers making up to $300 a day. So you ain't falling for that. They probably got more in their bank than you have in yours. You recall the GoFundMe scam where a couple pulled on people's heartstrings, asking them to help a homeless veteran. But the whole story was fake. And they ended up deceiving people out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. You gave that contractor the money up front because they said they really needed it. Then they failed to show up for the job. How about that time you gave a family member a place to stay and they stole from you? Or you gave them a week to stay and they stayed 3 years. Somebody can relate to that. But you remember all of this and still you will not look at the panhandler. Just, I'm going to look at this light. Because we know not to trust our hearts. We know our hearts too well. They melt far too easily. That pesky heart of yours that actually does give a damn. That loving, forgiving, joyous little thing that gets in the way of our stories and gets in the way of our indifference and makes us all gooey and gullible so we don't look. Because if we look, what might we see? Might it be their humanity? Might it be ours? By now, you're started arguing with that red light. When is this darn light going to change? Am I talking to anyone? Is it just me? I remember a time when I was in Raleigh and I came up to this light and that was the second car and it was a double turning lane and this young man was standing out there and he was talking to the car in front of him. It was a gold Mercedes, I never will forget. And he was talking to the guy and then he came down to me and I gave him $2 and the guy was waving his hand and then he was looking in the mirror and he was saying something. I was like, what happened? And then the light turned green and the cars on the side just kept going and he stayed right there. And I was honking and the cars kept going. And then when it turned yellow, right before it turned red, he drove off. And so I was stuck at the red light. And I was like, did he just do what I thought he did? He was angry because I gave the man $2. So I asked the guy when I pulled up, I said, what did he say to you? He said, well, he said I was worthless and I needed a job. And then the guy did this. He did this number right here. And I could tell that there was a story behind that nod, that driver didn't bother to notice or to learn. Now, I didn't have time to learn that story either because that light was going to change and I was not going to miss the second one. But I gave him a $20 bill and I said, here, take that. But the truth is, many of us have been taken advantage of. And it's true that there are many grifters out there. That most of the people asking for help aren't there for a big payday. Many are struggling with homelessness and mental health issues or addiction, just trying to survive this thing called life. While we may not know the full stories of those asking for help, we can't ignore the humanity behind their struggles. But I get it. I get it. Many of us, burned by past experience, start to question whether any of our efforts even make a difference. Some of us have grown tired of being called to love our enemies and do good to those who persecute us, especially when everyone else seems to be content on expressing outrage, cynicism, and apathy, and a good old-fashioned case of, it's not my problem. Sometimes it feels like the world is asking more of us than we are capable of giving. Now, what I am describing actually has a term attached to it. It's called compassion fatigue. It's not just physical exhaustion. It's emotional, mental, and even spiritual weariness. We don't just get tired from doing the work. We get tired from feeling too much, from seeing too much suffering. In today's world, compassion fatigue can come from overexposure to trauma, with the nonstop news of wars and disaster and violence, along with the political stress and personal struggles in our families and communities. It's easy to feel drained. We see so much suffering that we begin to shut down. It's our way of protecting ourselves from feeling overwhelmed. But in doing so, we often end up disconnected from others and sometimes even from ourselves. Yet even in the midst of exhaustion, moments of connection can break through and remind us of the power of showing up. Recently, I had a long day filled with meetings and hospital visits, and I was completely drained, running on near empty. But I knew I had one more visit I had to make. But I was worried that I wouldn't be fully present. But when I stepped into that room and saw that person's face light up, celebrating my presence with such hope, and I knew that their situation was dire. But when I saw that, all of my exhaustion instantly disappeared. Their strength lifted me. I left that place feeling more uplifted and energized than when I first walked in. It's in those moments when we are at our weakest that we often find unexpected strength from the very people we aim to support. How many times have you shown up to help someone only to realize they ended up helping you more? You went in to serve but walked away with something you didn't expect, whether it was strength, peace, or perspective. Now, we can never predict how serving others may impact us. The unexpected blessings, lessons, and even healing that come our way are often as powerful as the help we think we're giving. It is indeed a privilege, a great privilege, to be entrusted with serving others. Now, I know that we can't help everyone we meet, but when we can and when we do, we feel more alive, more connected, yes, and more human. When we stay open-hearted and refuse to let the world's pain and hardship make us indifferent, we fulfill something deep inside. It's about being willing to step into the unknown, even when it feels uncomfortable. Philosopher Simone Weil once wrote, "Compassion directed toward oneself is humility." We've got to remember that taking care of others sometimes starts with taking care of ourselves. And taking care of oneself sometimes involves reaching out to others for help. Just as we strive to support others, we have to have the courage to lean on our community when we're in need. Author Simon Sinek explains that asking for help is an act of service. Don't deny the people who love you the honor and privilege of being there to support you. He explains that we build trust, not by offering to help someone, but by asking for help. When we ask for help, we reveal our own vulnerability, showing others that we trust them enough to lean on them. It creates a deeper bond because it requires honesty and humility, acknowledging that we cannot do everything alone. In doing so, we give others the opportunity to step in to care for us and to meet us where we are. And friends, know this, that we are not meant to go through this life alone. When we're tired, scared, or uncertain, it's our family, friends, and community that help carry the load. We must allow them to. So if you need help, reach out. And remember that we are here for each other. Galatians 6:2 tells us to carry each other's burdens, and in this way, you will fulfill the law. I say this because in our community, compassionate caring doesn't belong solely to the care team. We're all in this together. Looking out for each other is something we all do. For those of you who are already part of a small group in our community, whether it's one of our choirs, the supper club, or a support group, or any close circle in our congregation, these smaller communities are where we're truly known. It's where you share your meals, experiences, and pieces of your lives that people outside of your close circle may not see. These groups are where real connections happen, making them the perfect place for healing care to occur naturally. This is what compassion in a community looks like: caring for those nearest you and building relationships. So while the care team is always here, those of you in these smaller groups have the chance to carry out the everyday work of compassion with each other. Together, we are creating a community where no one needs to feel alone, overlooked, or uncared for. Now, compassion doesn't always mean stepping in to fix a situation. Sometimes it's as simple as seeing someone, acknowledging their existence and their value, even if we can't personally meet their needs. That recognition alone is a form of service, folks. It affirms the dignity of others and opens us up to the transformative power of compassion. I guarantee it. The story of Marinella Beretta that I shared at the beginning of my message should serve as a moment of reflection for us all. The tragedy of her life was that she didn't have the threads of connection needed to sustain her. We may ask, why? Why was she so alone? What might have been her reasons for not reaching out for help? Perhaps she felt ashamed of her circumstances. Maybe she didn't want to bother others, or possibly she had lost trust in the people around her. Fear, pride, and trauma can sometimes lead us to isolate ourselves and not ask for help. But building connections, my friends, is a mutual effort. And sometimes those who feel most disconnected must also take the courageous step of reaching out. Reaching out if you need help. Now, the town's mayor said after the discovery of Marinella's body, he said, "This is a moment to be together. And even if this woman had no relatives, we could become her relatives." It's a powerful call to take on the responsibility of community, to see each other and act as family for those who are isolated, forgotten, or suffering. One of her neighbors remarked, "I feel so bad that I didn't know that she had died." But what's really sad is that they didn't know that she had lived. It wasn't her death that went unnoticed, it was her life. And no life should go unnoticed. How many Marinellas are there in our own communities? People who live in isolation, whose struggles go unnoticed because we are perhaps too overwhelmed or too busy to notice. Or perhaps we are the one needing help but refuse to seek it. So today, I leave you with these questions. Will you have the courage to ask for help when you need it? With all that you have given in your life, are you open to receiving? Because the truth is, we build more bonds by asking for help than we do by offering it. Because when people ask for help, we allow others to show up for us. In that moment, we forge connections stronger than any single act of giving could ever create. Please join me in a short meditation, if you will. Please take a deep breath, letting the air fill your lungs. As you exhale, release any tension in your body and simply be present in this moment. If you would like to close your eyes and picture yourself by a calm river, the water flows gently, reflecting the warm light of the setting sun. You watch as the leaves float by, noticing the small, beautiful details that are often overlooked. Now shift your focus, if you will, to the people in your life, those who might need your care today, your smile today, your hello, those who could benefit from your presence or just a moment of your time. Now breathe deeply again. This time, think about those moments when you might need help. Be reminded that all of life is both frail and magnificent. But hold on to the belief that in this interconnected web of existence, we are all each other's keepers. We all walk each other home. Remember, you are not alone. Breathe in, feeling the warmth of connection, both in giving and receiving. Breathe out, letting go of anything that holds you back from embracing these moments of shared compassion. And when you're ready, open your eyes. I encourage you to carry with you this sense of balance, knowing that both giving and receiving help deepen our connections and strengthen our community. Blessed be, amen, ashe, so be it.
We could use your help. When I